What's up, everybody? So, kind of a video response to my driving school stuck on flat ground video that I posted yesterday. Um, Somebody made a comment, that I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but it said that they've learned a lot over their 40 some years of driving from old guys like me, uh, and even new guys. And I think that there's something to be said about that too, because I have learned things from guys who've been doing this less than me, but they've been maybe doing something different longer than I had, like pulling when I was pulling flatbed. Um, but he made the comment that I should probably start my own driving school. And believe me, I've thought about that. I have thought about that more than once in my 30 plus years of doing this. And I have, what I think are good ideas in how to implement the curriculum to make sure, like I said, drivers, when they come out, they're ready to go to work. They wouldn't just be CDL holders. These would be entry-level truck drivers. But the problem with it is everybody wants stuff right now, right now, right now. And if they can go get their CDL in 2 or 3 weeks, they're not going to come to my school because they're being told they don't need anything more than that by these schools. And I really think, like I said yesterday, and I'll say this again, I've said it in several videos, the driving schools or the CDL schools are really doing the new drivers a major disservice by not teaching them the important things they need to know. Most of them, when they come out of their CDL school, have this much idea how to fill out a logbook. They have this much idea about what the FMCSRs are. They have this much knowledge about where the green book is, what it's for, how to find things within that. Now, I know there's some schools out there that teach that, but so many of the guys I've talked to over the years, especially here in this last couple of years, have no idea what I'm talking about when I say green book. If you've been driving for a long time, you know what the little green book is, or a little fat green book, or the big green book, depending on how you want to call it. But I've always heard it called, we've always just called it the green book. And sorry, man, the sun's going down behind me and it is right in my face. But anyway, back to that, these schools aren't teaching these guys that. They're not learning to be truck drivers. They are learning to get their CDL, and that's all they're doing. And these big companies apparently are fine with that because they don't seem to care. They'll hire these guys. They don't know anything. They can barely drive the truck. And then they leave a guy stuck that's out there trying to make a living. They're giving him a little bit of extra money every week for his troubles or her troubles. And the new guys aren't really learning anything. So I would, like I said, I've thought about this, and I would really like to have a school that really trained the drivers how to be a truck driver. And I would not have any auto shift trucks for the simple fact that those guys restrict themselves so badly on what they can drive by having that auto shift only restriction. And that's a kind of a sad deal. When I was running the truck rental and leasing company, there were guys that come in to rent trucks that I couldn't rent to because they had that restriction and they couldn't drive any of our trucks. I had one auto shift truck in my fleet for the longest time. Now that fleet's turned around since I left, and it's all auto shift, with the exception of, I think, like 2 day cabs. But, I really think a guy should learn how to drive in a manual transmission truck, or a gal, because it teaches you more control over the truck than driving a truck that does a third of your job by itself. In this driving school, here's how I would like to see it laid out. If I was to start a driving school, this is how I would do it. Like I said, it would be, we'll just throw out there 12 weeks. We'll just say 3 months, 12 weeks. You start on a Monday, first day. Come in, it's an orientation to the school. You get to meet the staff. You get a little introduction from each staff member of how long they've been in the industry. And like I said, my instructors I would want instructors that all have over 20 years experience. Maybe even some really old guys that have been doing this, for 40 or 50 years. And I really think that's important, because there's so much that they can impart on these younger guys and gals that's so important. Just little tips and tricks. And as they get their stuff going, they've got paperwork to fill out. Of course, they'd have to go get their medical certificate, and I would make that part of the school, that these guys go, that we would have somebody come in and do their medical exam right there on site, along with a pre-employment drug test. Well, they're not getting employed by you. Doesn't matter. They've got to be used to it. And I know way back in 1991, when I got out of the Marine Corps and I went to a driving school, we had to take a drug test, and we had to go through the medical exam, and we had to take the written test for our CDL. But we didn't take it the first day. We were in the classroom for 3 weeks. I would like to see 3 or 4. But part of that classroom training would be some other things besides just, truck systems. We would have videos, and probably JJ Keller would be the most used video platform we had, to talk about different things, safety aspects, jackknife prevention, all that stuff, the same stuff that everybody watches in orientation when they go to work for a big company. There would also be time and instruction every single day on the most common FMCSA rules, FMCSRs, and they would need to be taking notes and learning these things, like hours of service regulations. They'd start filling out a paper logbook, day 1. Everybody would work together on that. I would have them learn how to do. I would require everybody to have an atlas, because that would be provided in the course, would be, a laminated road atlas. They would all be required to, during this 4-week period, every day log a trip, starting at one point to another, and finding it all on the map, writing out the routes they would take, where they would stop, where they would need to get fuel. We would give them a scenario of, you're driving this truck that carries 300 gallons of fuel. You've only got 80 gallons in the truck to start with. Your trip's 463 miles. You've got XXX for truck stops along the way. What is going to be your best bet for fuel? Things like, just really get in there and teach these guys how to do the job. And I might even have, some industry guys come in, like maybe the safety director for one of the local companies come in and have a talk. Maybe have the recruiters from a couple local companies come in and talk to the students, to kind of tell them about their companies and give them some swag and whatever. All my trucks would be older, somewhat long wheelbase, conventional tractors. And here's why. There are so many guys out there that I run into who drive, as I call them, the Tupperware torpedoes, that don't understand how much room it takes for me or guys with equipment like mine to get around. And if they had a little better understanding, then I think some of them, as new guys, would go, that guy can't get through here. Maybe I shouldn't park here. Okay. We would go over accident procedures, how to react after an accident, whether it was your fault or not, where to take pictures, what not to take pictures of. Again, very basic but important items that I really feel these CDL schools are leaving out of their day-to-day curriculum. Their whole curriculum is just get through the written test and that's it. So we would study for the written test and we would try to schedule all the written tests towards the end of the first week by the middle of the second week. So then they would have their learner's permit and then we could start driving a little. But I would really want them to just be in a classroom setting for at least a minimum of 3 weeks, if not 4. A guy would have to really put the curriculum together and sit down and draw out a timeline of how long it would take to go through each point. And in that, we would have some displays, with the brake valves and the air system and the brake chambers, cutaways, to show how things work so that they can visualize what's going on with their trucks while they're doing things like pushing in the clutch, stepping on the brake, stepping on the throttle, what it does through the ECM. Not super in depth, but how it all works, how a turbo works, how a Jake brake works, how the aftercooler system works, the air to air, the charge air cooler, depending on what area of the country you're from is what they call that. Talk about things like preventive maintenance, how important grease and oil changes are and things like that. Even if they're never going to own their own truck, if they know these things, they're better equipped when they go to work for somebody to drive somebody else's truck. And I think that's super important. And then we would discuss the different career paths they can go. We'd bring somebody in that's pulled a reefer, somebody that's pulled flatbed, a dry van. If you pull a reefer, you can pull a dry van. It's not difficult, right? That's an easy thing between the two. Maybe a guy that's pulled an RGN and hauled oversize. A guy that's run belly dump or end dump or side dump. Maybe a tanker driver, we get the ATA. As much as I dislike the American Trucking Association for what they stand for, but maybe we could get the road team to come in with their truck and do a share of the road program. Okay. And then once they all get their CDLs, and I would try to keep this class relatively small, 5 to 15 students, maybe 10 or 15. I think 10 to 15 would be a good, comfortable number. At 10, even at 15, you could have 5 trucks that you used out on the road. And you could put 3 drivers in each truck. You could have the driver, the trainer, a student, and then 2 students riding in the sleeper. We could put seats back there, take the bed out, and they could ride along, right? And I think that's really important too, because then they can watch what the other guy is doing and they can visualize and learn while the instructor said, okay, now here's what you need to do. And then if they do something wrong, they can, okay, now wait, here's, you were trying to downshift, but you were bringing the RPMs up way too high and just trying to cram it in gear. Whatever. Those things. They can see that from a third person and then actually experience it. And then have a couple, 3 trucks in the yard. And I think really in all reality, they would be a longer wheelbase truck and a short trailer for a couple of the exercises and a 53-foot trailer for normal stuff. I really feel like if you're going to learn to back up, you should be learning to back up with a 53-foot trailer. Running around town, doing, the first couple days, maybe we would drag a short trailer around town as we're out on our road doing the initial stuff to get used to pulling a trailer. But then I would totally have them driving the same kind of equipment they're going to drive, with the exception of maybe the tractor would be a little longer wheelbase, extended hood. It wouldn't be like this. I wouldn't put them in something crazy long like this at 310 inches, but 245, 255, 260 right in there. Manageable. Plus, if they've got nice, cool looking equipment to drive, that's going to attract some students. And that's going to attract, really, in all reality, a lot of times the better students, the ones that really want to do this for a living, the ones that are going to have some dedication to it. I know when I was training, when I worked for TWT in Spokane, one of the first questions out of my mouth always was, do you really want to do this? Why do you want to do this? And do you understand what this job entails? The away from home, the stress that comes with that, the fact that you're basically running two households while you're out here on the road. You got the one at home and you got the one here in your truck. Those were my first questions, and I kind of got yelled at a couple times because I would just tell people, if this, and I'd ask them, is this what you really want to do? Well, I think so. You think so? Well, yeah, I just want to give it a try, and if it doesn't work, I'm like, then don't waste my time. Go train with somebody else. I would call our training department manager and tell him, I'm not taking this guy. Well, why not? Because he's not dedicated. He doesn't. I'm not going to waste my time with somebody who a week or two into it is going to go, it's not for me. And I think, like I said, you would have to charge, I think, per person on a 12-week school, I think you're looking about 12 to 15 grand per student. But then I want you to ask yourself, if you're somebody looking to get into a career and you can get McDonald's level service and expectations for 5 grand, or if you can spend, we'll say 15, we'll throw out a number, 15 grand a student, right? If you can pay 15 grand and you get a 5-course meal experience with all the best service and top quality food, I think that's going to attract the better drivers. They're going to pay that money. I don't know. What say you guys? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? And then, like I say, we would have some instructors that worked in the yard. Maybe we would have 3 yard trucks and 2 road trucks. And we would split the class up. While some are out driving, some are in the yard. And we'd switch them around and let them go drive, and the other guy is in the yard. Or maybe we would do like every other day. I'm not sure exactly how. I'm trying to remember back to when I went to school, how it was set up. And it was pretty amazing because, like I said, we were there 9 weeks. It was 3 weeks of classroom, 6 weeks out in the truck, whether it be in the yard or out on the road. And when we went out on the road, by the time it was all said and done, all of us had right around 2,500, 3,000 miles over the course of that 6 weeks of driving experience. Now, that's not very much when you think guys are running 2,000 to 3,000 miles a week out here running. But for a brand new driver, I guarantee you the guys that are going through these short CDL schools are getting nowhere near that many miles at all. They're probably getting 10% of that. They've driven 200 or 300 maybe in the course of 3 or 4 weeks versus over the course of 6 weeks getting 3,000 miles. So 500 miles a week. Again, like I said, I know it's not a ton, but it's more than most. And it gives a person, you get a good feel for what you're getting into. Take different routes. We would work on, especially where I live in the Northwest, it would be amazing because we have a lot of big hills, a lot of steep hills. Be a good place to learn how to drive in the mountains, how to start from a dead stop on a 5, 6, 7, 8% grade, how to come down the hills properly with and without your Jake brake. I see so many guys still to this day with the equipment that we have. There is absolutely zero excuse for you to smoke your brakes. Yet I see it happen weekly. Going off of Mont Eagle. Mont Eagle is not much of a hill to me. I see it all the time. I see chunks of brake drum laying alongside the road, which means somebody got their brakes so hot that it broke the drum. So learning how to do these things and do it properly would be a huge benefit. And we would talk about things as we're driving. Okay, the road's icy. What do we do here? What should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing? Should we be steady on the throttle, maybe back out of it a few miles an hour, kind of take it easy? Or should we set our cruise control all the way up against the speed limiter, turn the Jake brake switch on, and just pray for the best when it all goes south? There's so much that can be taught that's not being taught. And it's not being taught on the company level from these big mega carriers, because the guys that are doing the training, like I said, the guys and the gals, so many of them don't have a whole lot more experience than the people they're training. Quote, training. And there are some good guys out there and they're training, but they're using the training part as extra income to make more money. And that's not fair to the drivers. And then in that also, during this time, I would make sure we had a reefer, a dry van, and a flatbed, or a couple just dry vans. Reefers don't even, whatever, we can learn about how to run those. Maybe we can find somebody who has a used unit we can set up and use it as a training tool, just so guys understand how to turn them on and set temperature and things like that. That way when they get somewhere, they're not completely oblivious to how things work. Load securement, have a couple flatbeds, have them throw straps, have them throw chains, have them have them tarp, find somebody that would donate a couple units of lumber, and we tarp a couple units of lumber just to get the feel for it, to see how to do things. So and then they can make a decision. Man, I don't want to do that, but I really like flatbed, and I don't care if I got a tarp every other day. I really want to go do that because that's cool. Or I want nothing to do with that. I just want to pull a reefer or drive in. And the proper way to put in load logs. There is a right and a wrong way. I mean, a lot of trailer damage happens because guys put load locks in. They set load locks up incorrectly. There's a lot of that. And I really think that all those things, while yes, they can be taught at the company, I see so much of this going on with these guys, and it's funny because I can be somewhere and doing something, and I'll have a guy watching me, and I'm like, what something I can help you with? And they're like, oh yeah, I've just never seen anybody do that like that before. That makes a lot of sense. That makes way more sense than how I've been doing it. Or every once in a while, I guess we're like, hey, I do this way. And I'm like, ooh, I like that. That's a good idea. Not going to have any cow trailers. That's a specialized freight system there, But again, we could come up with some stuff, have a guy weld some stuff together, and we could practice putting chains and binders on something. Maybe somebody donates an old tractor and we put it on a step deck and they learn how to chain stuff down. Just some things that, dude, that car almost hit me. Just general knowledge stuff that so many guys just don't know. How to fuel the truck, where the DEF goes, where to check the oil, where to put oil in at, where not to put it in at. The pre-trip side of things. We would, of course, work on some of that in the classroom, and then the yard time when they're backing up, those guys would be out there working on pre-trips. And then every time they drove the truck, they would have to do a pre-trip. Every single driver, not just whoever starts out driving it. I would want every driver to learn to do a pre-trip properly. And again, like I've talked about in the past, a pre-trip does not need to be a 30-minute deal. 7 to 10 minutes should be sufficient to do a pretty thorough pre-trip. Trucks all have automatic slack adjusters. They've got disc brakes now. Very few of them have manual slack adjusters on the old drum brakes. There's a few out there still, but very, very few of them do. There's so much, it's not hard to teach this stuff. It's not hard to teach it and not be overwhelming. But I think these things are important. I don't know, those are just my thoughts, What are your thoughts on that? Would you go to a school that was an accredited school, would give you an associate's degree in transportation, because that's how we could spend that, and we'll teach you some of the things like what freight brokers do, what dispatchers do, fleet managers, whatever you want to call them, just kind of the different aspects. And if people are asking, I've got a good friend of mine worked for a driver school here a few years back, and it's probably been 10, 11 years ago now. He got fired because they were during a break out in the yard, taking a break between stuff going on, and he got fired because they were asking him questions and he was telling them the truth. They were asking questions about pay and how long they're gone and, what the average time is these guys that have to be out on the road by, away from their families. Because all these driving schools are telling you, you can probably get out there and get back home every weekend. No big deal, right? Or, you can get home every night. I've heard that too. I've heard guys say, I was told I could get out here and I'd be home every night. Now here I am driving for Crash and Roll out of freaking Salt Lake City, and they're mad because they're gone 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks at a time, and they're not making any money because the time that they're out on the road, they're sitting a couple days a week getting restarts in and not making any money. Train them how to be efficient with their time so that the cents per mile pay, which I know there's a lot of guys really have a problem with that. I don't. I never did. I always thought it was actually the better way to get paid. And because you get paid based on performance that way. What you do more, you get paid more. And that's how it should be. I'm so tired of this. Well, I've been driving 2 years. I should make the same amount of money as that guy that's been doing this for 30 years. I hear that a lot out here. Well, I do the same job. Yeah, but you probably don't do it as well. There's probably things you do that you do wrong, and you're just lucky it hasn't cost you a lot of time, a lot of money, or your job. Basically, the school would help teach drivers how to care about the industry, give them some pride in what they do, and let them meet people who love trucking. Everybody that works there would have to have been in the trucking business or industry, some capacity or another, to be there. I would want somebody, I really would want somebody who was a mechanic and knows trucks inside and out, because then those guys could answer a lot more of the questions and help teach the equipment operation side of the business, how the equipment works. They would be an amazing teacher. Most of them. There's some that wouldn't, like I said, not everybody can teach. But I think it would be really cool, you know. And then, like I said, like that kid with the frozen brakes. Nobody taught him to beat on the drums when the brakes are frozen. Fortunately, where I live, unless the weather would be extremely bad, they would get to drive in wintertime conditions if they came through the school at that time of year. So, just my thoughts. Like I said, just my ideas and what I've thought. But like I said, I don't know 100% that anybody would be interested in going to it, because so many people want that rapid get out there and get going thing. But unfortunately, they don't even know, so many of them don't even know that they don't know anything. They didn't learn anything in their CDL school. So, and like I said, there's exceptions. There's some good schools. There's a lot more bad schools. There's some really good company trainers, but there's a lot more bad company trainers. And I don't mean bad companies, I mean bad trainers. And it's because the companies aren't holding those guys accountable. I know when I was training, the guy had to, when we were all done, the guy had to pass a written and a road test. And they would evaluate us as a trainer based on how good that student did. So it would just make the trainer's life easier. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, everybody. Man, like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you. So much appreciate your thoughts and your comments. Like I said, like I've told you a million times, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And I'm learning something new every single day. I really do. I learn something new all the time. But I also have a lot of experience. I've been doing this for a lot of years. And because of that, I really feel in a very humble way that I have a lot of experience I can share. And it just kills me when you try to share your experience with people, regardless of how you come across. They just won't accept it. Just will not. I'll give you a little story here. I may have told this once before, but I was pulling flatbed. I was leased to System Transport there in Spokane. And I take it back. I was driving a company truck for them. It was after I sold my last truck there. And I was headed for Canada. I was loading genies over in Redmond, Washington, the man lifts, to go up to Calgary, Alberta. And I pulled in. It was getting late in the afternoon. I didn't have my Canadian paperwork done yet. And I was just going to go in, back up in front of my trailer, throw my chains and everything, go find a place to park, go to bed, come back next morning, take my load and leave. There was a Aero truck in there. And this guy, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Aero trucking or not, but those poor guys, I think they were out of Sapulpa, Oklahoma. Sapulpa, is that how you say it? They ended up going broke spectacularly back in the mid-2000s. But anyway, I pull in, this guy's trying to chain his stuff down, and he's only got like 9 chains and 12 binders or something, and he's got, I think there was 4 or 5 different machines on his trailer, trying to make all this work, and he was cussing and throwing crap and everything. And he had his chains wrapped around the rub rail and hooked like underneath the rub rail, right back onto the rub rail. So the rub rail was his tie down point. That's just totally wrong. But anyway, I got talking to him, and I'm like, hey, you want some help? And he's like, I don't need any help. And I said, you sure? And I said, you got this right. Don't touch my shit. That was his exact words. Keep your hands off my stuff. I don't need your help. And I'm like, all right, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. They're going to come back here and boot you out of here, whether you're tied down or not. And I said, if you're not tied down all the way, your load's staying here. They won't let you leave with it. Yeah, I'd like to see him try. So that made me mad because he was being such a douche. I had 3 machines. I have never tied stuff down so fast, ever. I was out of there right at 6 o'clock. 30 minutes to tie down 3 machines. And I threw probably like 12 chains and 12 binders. And a couple straps. I got everything down, hooked up my trailer, was getting ready to leave, and the guy's like, y'all done? I said, yep. And he walked around. He's like, all right, I'll see you up at the guard shack. And he walked over and he told that other guy, he said, are you done? He goes, no, I got about another hour left. And he goes, well, too bad. Because they have apartment buildings right there close, and at 6 o'clock, everybody's got to leave. Because they start parking along the streets around there, and you can't get out with a semi. And noise and everything else, And this guy, I drove off, laughing at him, and he's throwing a fit, waving his arms around, and that guy that was there that ran the yard was like, absolutely not. And when I was turning the corner out on the street, he was coming out on the street behind me, bobtail. So my advice is, if you, and I'm sure he was watching me when I was all done, he was probably like, holy crap, maybe I should have let that guy help me. But he had just such a crappy attitude, and I may have said something that just struck him wrong. I don't know. I don't recall. I just know that I was like, all right, fine, have fun. You'll be back here tomorrow. And I just went to commencing to just tying my stuff down and getting out of there. And I got up the road, found a place to park, went to bed, got up next morning, 150 miles closer than I would have been, and got all my Canadian paperwork in order and everything. I went back through Spokane and picked everything up there. But I was just like, that guy could have saved himself so many heartaches and headaches and hassles if he would have just let me help him. We could have tag teamed that trailer, got it loaded, got him out of there. And I hauled enough of them things over the years that I could see how he needed to tie this stuff down with the minimum amount of chains and binders that he had and still be legal. But he didn't want to hear it. He knew everything, And I mean, he had like 9 chains, and he probably had 14 tie down points that he had to tie down to, and he was using 1 chain per tie down point. And it just wasn't getting it. He just could not figure it out, like how to split a chain and use 2 binders on a single chain to tie down a piece of equipment. A lot of guys just, I know when I very first started doing that, I had no idea. I was so lost. And then a guy showed me, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. And just, things that you should learn that you don't learn unless you're shown. And there, like I said, we have such a problem now in this industry. So many of these poor guys and gals are told they know everything they need to know, and they don't. So, like I said, we need a revamp in the schools. We need a revamp in attitudes. We need to bring people in that really want to do this job for a living, and take some pride in it, take care of their trucks, take care of themselves. You're always going to have your douchebags. Just the way it is. And maybe it would eliminate some of the foreign drivers. Because let's face it, let's just be honest. So many of those guys, they are a rolling freaking disaster waiting to happen. Not all of them, but the majority of them. I run around them out here every single day of the week. All day, every day. And I see so many that are just, I mean, dude, it's kind of scary how many of them are out here on the road that or this far away from causing a major accident all day long, everywhere they go. And I would like to eliminate that. I would really like to see the trucking industry come back as that knight in shining armor sort of thing, that like the cavalry coming to the rescue in the old westerns. I would love to see that. I don't know if we'll ever see it again. Maybe it's just a pipe dream. But those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I really appreciate it. Like I always tell you, be kind to each other. Save a life. I don't know what that means. I just had to throw that in there. Do it to it like Pruitt used to do it to it. Look that line up. Keep the bugs off your glass and the bears off your tails. Be safe out there, guys. Seriously, though. Be safe. Be courteous. Be considerate. And keep the shiny side up and the greasy side down. We'll catch you on the flip-flop. See ya.